Hi, this is Mitch from Hard Intentions coming back at you. This is our Hard Intentions YouTube channel, and of course we have hardintentions.com where we sell t-shirts, prints of my art, some original art, stickers, and hopefully we'll expand a little bit, into the future comes around. In the future we can expand. One of the expansions we're doing here is our new shirt. I just came back from the print shop. He's working on our new shirt. Of course, there's the front. And here's the back. Yes, sir. Look at that. There we go. That's the hammer drop. This is a black shirt. Black and gray print on the back. I think he did an excellent job. I mean, look at that. Look at that, folks. Look at the detail in that, man. This guy prints these by hand. He pulls the screens by hand. And of course, all of these prints right here are paintings that I did in acrylic paint before I got out of prison. I had a vision, and I'm starting to get it together. It's coming to fruition. I had a dream, and I got out and I'm making it happen. And a big part of that is the folks that are watching this channel, people that have checked me out on YouTube, people that have bought my shirts are a validation that the dream I had, the vision I had was a good one, and I'm grateful, very grateful. So don't forget to please subscribe and hit that like button if you're watching. So last time I was talking about being in Donovan, and since we're talking about this, artwork and stuff, I got my first tattoo when I was about 12 or 13. A guy named Sleepy from Pomona 12th Street tattooed 13 on my hand, which is from marijuana, if you're a white guy, back in the day. Got me hooked, we started tattooing with little hand pluckers. You just put we use a staple, sewing needle, whatever we get into a toothbrush, melt it in there, wrap it with thread, and dip it in the ink and just pluck, by hand. Then later on, of course, we got into tattoo machines. I started seeing tattoo machines when I was at Preston. And then, I dabbled a little bit on the street, not a lot. And then, of course, when I came to prison, I got into it full blast. Tattooing just became a thing that I really wanted to do. I tattooed on my own legs and my arm. I really fucked my left arm up practicing on my arm. Then I practiced on my legs for years. I got fairly good at it, and then when I got out of the shoe, I was out in the main line. I had access to stuff. I could figure out how to make a better tattoo machine, because if you get busted, they take your stuff. So you want to find out what kind of stuff you have access to that's readily available, and in case you lose your stuff. A lot of guys use cassette motors. I used 8-track motors. The earlier Walkman type cassettes they had decent sized motors in them, but over the years it became these little tiny pancake motors. I like a bigger motor with a little bit more torque, because that way it could punch into the skin. My theory is, the more torque the motor had, the easier it was to get the ink in the skin, and the less damage you did to the skin. You see a lot of guys tattooed in prison and everything. They just scratch the skin, scratch until they make a hamburger out of the skin, and then of course you get scabs and scars, and a lot of ink falls out. So I always like to use a bigger motor. Once I got out and I started tattooing, once I got out of the hole, I started drawing my own tattoo patterns, and it really kind of blew me away, because guys would come up, man, will you tattoo on me? Even when I knew my tattoo work really wasn't that good, guys would want me to tattoo on them, so I kept doing it. And it wasn't bad work, but it wasn't great. It wasn't nearly as good as I am now. I just kept practicing tattooing on people, and I always tattooed for Cash or Canteen. A lot of guys tattooed for drugs, and so you'd have these guys that would tattoo for drugs. I mean, guys would get them high, and they would tattoo on them, and then next thing the guy's not loaded. And like a friend of mine told me one time, he says, nobody wants to pay today for yesterday's high, right? So to get their tattoo work finished, once they got the guy high, it was all about they had to get him high again to finish the work, which I always thought that was bullshit. And I saw a lot of guys getting in wrecks over that because they'd start tattooing for drugs, and even if their work was good, I mean, nobody wants to just keep pumping some dope fiend full of drugs, man, to get their tattoo work done. So I always told people, look, I don't tattoo for drugs. I tattoo for money, sometimes canteen, sometimes for free if I like the person. But as far as payment goes, I always wanted money. So I started drawing my own tattoo patterns, tattooing. I never liked to do freehand style tattooing because if you have a clean skin, why not draw a pattern that fits that specific size? That way it's nice and clean, no mistakes. Freehanding's overrated to me. I heard a lot of guys say, yeah, my homeboy does this or that freehand. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But what if he makes a mistake? Then you're fucked. Then he has to fix that mistake, and the tattoo doesn't come out as nice and clean as it should. Then I remember one time I had this guy. I was working on a construction crew, and he came back, and he was a northerner. He was cool, but he had a name on his stomach he wanted covered. He goes, yeah, I want some roses there, and I told him, yeah, $50. And he goes, oh, fuck that, man. My homeboy will do it for free. I said, well, then go have your homeboy do it for free. And I was working out in the back gate going to the yard, and doing some construction work. And he came by about a week later, and he's like, hey, Holmes, check it out. And he lifted his stomach up, showed me his fresh tattoo. And it covered up the name. It was a girlfriend's name or whatever, but it was pretty big lettering. And he had these roses his homeboy put on there. And I told him, yeah, that's a nice cabbage patch, Holmes. And he was mad as fuck. He was mad, But, good tattoos aren't cheap, and cheap tattoos aren't good. That's the theory there, Yeah, so I mean, I didn't tattoo to make friends. I tattooed for money, and it was an extension of my art, man. I wanted to be a tattoo artist. I didn't just want to be some guy that carried around a book of patterns and could tattoo some flash out of a binder, Plus, if you have a binder full of flash like all these dudes have, some of them would have like 2 binders full of flash, and they'd both be the same binder, and they'd keep one stashed in one spot, and in case the cops found them tattooing, got pissed off and took their flash binder. Some guys just had tons of flash, man. I was just like, I don't want to carry all that shit around. So I would draw patterns and put them on people, then tear up the pattern, And I got a kind of a good rep for that as far as tattooer goes. Guys, when you go somewhere and you tattoo on a couple guys, next thing you know, the whole damn yard wants you to tattoo on them, and they all have money. So it was a tempting deal to just run guys in and out of the house, I did that a little while when I was younger, but the cops get pissed off, man, and like I remember one cop, in Vacaville, when I first got out there, started tattooing. I said, look, man, I won't bring guys in and out of the building, to tattoo on them. And I did it. I brought this guy in from another wing, and the cop came in, and he says, hey, man, this guy don't live in here, So he got a little pissed off. But the thing was, I realized early on, if you don't front them off and you're doing good work, they won't mess with you. So, tattooing everybody on the yard became kind of a hard thing. I got to Tracy. That's when I really started tattooing a lot, and I could get quarts of ink, and I just started moving guys in my house. My work was good enough by then where I'd say, hey, look, come on in my house and move in. They pay me, send the money to my books, and or get some canteen or both, and then I would drop their patterns and tattoo on them. And then when I was done with their work, I would have the next guy who was ready for a tattoo. He'd send me some money, and then those 2 guys would switch. that guy would move out of my cell to that guy's house, and the other guy, the new guy, would move into my cell, and I'd start his work. So that it was also kind of convenient too, because they double cell everybody, and unless you have a really good friend, it's hard to get a good cellie. And they have a little saying in there, if you like somebody, don't make them your cellie, because when you live in a box big as your bathroom out here in the world, people start noticing each other's flaws, and they start focusing on it, and they start getting pissed off with each other about, well, this motherfucker did this and this motherfucker did that, and they start getting mad at each other, and so moving guys in and out of the house to tattoo like that was cool, because have a guy in my house for 2-3 months, 4 months, and then they'd move out, and new guy would move in. When the tattoo work was done, they'd move out. And here's the deal: if I didn't like somebody, I wouldn't tattoo on them. That's just the way it went. And it's kind of the same way out here. I mean, I've been in some of these shops out here just looking around, and they're kind of weird. So that's a big reason why I don't tattoo out here. I don't really fit in these tattoo shops out here. You see some of my work on Instagram, maybe. It's not too bad. I've tattooed on my wife's leg. She has a scar on her leg where she got burned by a motorcycle pipe when she was younger, and I tattooed over the scar, put some flowers. And I did one of the youngsters up here, did some of his work. And a friend of mine, John, down in the LA area, I tattooed over his prison work. I filled it in with color. But the thing is, I don't really fit in these shops out here. These are kind of like hipster lames. They think their shit don't stink. They think they're special because they could do some fucking tattoo work. And, here's my thing, man. They don't make you special because you could do some tattoo work. And it doesn't give you the green light to fucking disrespect people and, tie them off and act like you're, whatever, put your nose in the air towards people, and make them kiss your ass for a fucking tattoo. I'm not into that shit, I mean, it's like the youngster I tattooed on up here, he'd pop in, he'd be like, hey, I don't have any cash this week. I said, so what, man? Because I had his arm outlined. I said, let's just fucking get to work. And then next week he'd pop in with some cash. I felt grateful when he popped in with a little cash and drop it on me for the tattoo work I was doing on him. I felt, man, that's cool, Once again, it validates what you're doing. You're doing good work and people are willing to pay you. That's a validation of your skills. So I felt good. I don't want to make them feel like, hey, you should be grateful I'm touching you with this tattoo machine. Fuck that. That ain't no way to be. So and that's kind of how I see a lot of these shops out here. So I don't know if I rented a spot and started tattooing. I don't know if it would pay off for me. So I just kind of do my artwork, my paintings, sell my t-shirts and my stuff like that. And occasionally I do a little tattoo work at the house. So anyway, once I left Tracy, I went down to Donovan and I talked about Todd. I slung Todd back. We were cellies for about a year. Actually, I just worked on him, and then after maybe less than a year, probably about 8-9 months, then he left. I got another cellie in there, and then a guy showed up. He was a guy from the club down in San Diego, and I did some work on his shoulder caps and his arms, filled his arms in, tuned him up. That was kind of fun, And then I had another homeboy. I moved into his cell, and we became cellies basically because we got along. And he's the guy who beat the guy up in the cell, made him shit all over himself the next day. And I told him, yeah, man, I'll finish your back, And so I'm working on him. I fixed his back up, did some cover-up work. I think I tuned his shoulder caps up. Then I asked him, hey, you want me to do your legs? He's like, yeah, sure, So I think I went down up over his butt cheek, and down one leg. And I was working on the other leg. I had about half done. And one night, he just said, man, fucking, I'm done. I said, man, you don't want any more tattoos? Or, I said, I don't have that much left. Finish your leg. He said, yeah, I'm fucking done. I'm sick of that fucking needle. guys can only take so much. But yeah, I worked on him. Then I got a little homeboy named Chris. I did some work on his chest and his stomach, and he was a tattoo artist. And I'd like to think I gave him a few pointers that helped him out, but he was already a decent artist. And he had some problems with dope and things, and he got out and came back, and had some issues. His mom passed away and stuff, and I liked him, and he had some troubles, but I'm proud to say now that I'm very proud of him, man. He's out in the hometown tattooing out of the house. Seems to be doing really well, man. And I don't know if he watches these videos or not, but if you do, brother, I'm very proud of you. And I think you do fantastic work. So I tattooed him, and then I tattooed Matt, that I interviewed on here. I did his chest, and then Matt lived in another building, and I finagled it for him to move into my cell, and I did his chest, and they have a classification score, and what level prison you go in is based on your classification score. So he was a level 3, but he was borderline level 4, and the cops really didn't like him. Not that he was a bad guy, it's just that he was kind of like, hey, fuck the cops, I'm doing my own thing, right? So when I moved him in my house without going through the proper paperwork, someone told on him that he moved into my house to get some tattoo work. So they called him to his building that he used to live in, and they told him, take your shirt off. And he did. They go, those tattoos are fresh. Sent him over to the MTA, and the MTA's like, yeah. So they wrote him up, and his points went up to level 4, and they sent him to Corcoran. And so I moved another homeboy in. He was from the beach area. I blasted his back and his legs and his shoulders, and I got him done. He moved out. Then what happened was I had moved to another facility, and I had gotten to the point where I felt like I was never going to get out and stuff, so I divorced my wife. And she came up, she's like, hey man, fuck this, I want to come visit you, whatever. She kind of reached a point where she was like, I don't give a fuck if you get out or not. So I had my divorce papers in my file, but it had been quite a while, and I went on a family visit. I put in for a family visit, and my counselor, I saw him on the yard. He goes, hey man, it's been a while since you had a visit, right, from your wife. I says, yeah, we kind of got a little burned out, but we're back on, and I give him like positive, and yeah, they approved my family visit, even though we were divorced. And she's like, man, we're not going to get in trouble, are we? And I said, nah, trust me, it's all good, And we had another one. And then on the third one, I had moved over to another facility to live with this friend of mine, Filthy Frank, from Highland Park. And, I worked on the facility. So I moved over to the facility I worked on. That was my green light to get over there. I said, hey, I work over there anyway as a plumber. I move in with Filthy, start tattooing on him. And I put in, because I would have people send money to my books, and especially before I moved over there, I came up on a little money, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I sent my wife some money, and you fill out a trust withdrawal form, you put an envelope and everything, and I gave it to my new counselor, and then I went on a family visit. Well, this is a new counselor, so he doesn't know me. He pulls my file out, and so I go on my family visit. The first day goes by, and then the second day, I get a phone call from the counselor I had in the previous yard I lived on. He goes, hey man, what the fuck, man, you're divorced. I said, what are you talking about? He says, man, you're divorced, man, you got divorced. I says, well, I'm like, oh fuck, Well, what happened was my new counselor went through my file to see, because I put aid to my wife as a reason to send him money out. It was $500, so he saw my marriage certificate, and then he kept looking through my file, and he found the divorce papers, and he called the goon squad, and that was right around the time they were getting ready to take our family visits anyway. So Yeah, the counselor, my previous counselor who approved that family visit before I moved to that other yard, he says, "Man, you're divorced." He was upset. I said, "Well, I didn't think that divorce was finalized. It never got finalized." He goes, "Well, it did." And, he was mad. He was, because he got in big trouble. I had 3 family visits, He approved them. So, last night I was, your family visits are for 48 hours. So they came out the last night, and, we just got done frying chicken and eating chicken, and the 2 goon squad guys came out there, man. And one of them knew me because I was a plumber, and he'd be working places, and he'd see me come in as emergency plumber, and he'd pat me down, always pat me down, and never find anything. I said, "Hey, check this out, man. I don't fuck with drugs, and I ain't with the bullshit." So the guy had a little respect for me, and he's like, "Man, the guy's frying chicken in here. What is that? That smells great," And anyway, they rolled me up off my family visit, and I told him, "Man, I don't know if I could piss," He's like, "Don't worry about it, split." So he didn't even piss test me because he knew I was clean, and he says, "If it was up to me, I would have let you stay out there, finish out your visit, So anyway, they wrote me up for falsifying a family visiting application, and they sent me to Corcoran. My points went up. My points were already level 4. I went down there for a Category T program, then I got override as a plumber. So, excuse me, they killed my override, and they sent me to Corcoran level 4 prison. I was in 3B yard there, and there was a guy there I had lived with in a previous prison. I had done some tattoo work on his chest, and Matt was there. So my cellie and friend from Donovan that I had tattooed on, he was there, and Matt and I ended up selling up. I ended up tattooing Matt's whole body. I did his back, short sleeves, did his legs, all homemade ink. I tattooed a couple other guys on the side. There was a Southsider from Orange County. I tattooed the sleeve. I did a sleeve on him, all homemade ink. But, I really was getting burnt out on tattooing because you got to make your own ink, man, and it's a pain in the ass. And, your work doesn't come out as good as it should, So I focused more there on, now you got to remember, when I was in Donovan, I was painting a lot, too. I was tattooing and painting. I noticed the more I started painting, the better my tattoo work got, and vice versa. Your drawing and painting go together with tattooing. It's all one big thing. Like I said, I want to be a tattoo artist, And so anyways, I just focused on drawing tattoo patterns and sending them home, and doing colored pencil drawings, stuff like that, just to keep my art going. I remember I went down to R&R. I had a package sent in from home. That's before they stopped the packages from home. And I got like 380 colored pencils and 4 tablets of paper, and that was it. Usually, you get a package from home. It's got coffee and food and, Zuzus and Wham Whams, they call them, all kinds of treats. You get 30-pound package. Well, I had 30 pounds of art supplies. And the cop looks at it and he goes, "Man, what the fuck is all this?" I said, "Hey, dude, I'm an artist. I got to have it." So, all right, he gave it to me. And because they didn't have a hobby program at Old Corcoran. So that was the only way I could get art supplies. And I did that for a couple years there. And then I transferred to Lancaster prison, level 4, because there was no program at Corcoran other than yard and working. So I went down to Lancaster. They had a hobby program. I started painting and stuff, and I tattooed a little bit there, a couple guys, nothing big, And I got a job there. I moved over to a yard to be a plumber, and the guy working in arts and corrections was this little black dude, and they had this woman come in. She was in her early 50s, and she would teach art class to guys, and she would flirt around with these young Hispanic cats, man. She had a thing for them. And so this black guy, seeing that, she was doing shit with these guys, maybe. I wasn't in the program at the time, but he told me that his homeboys told me, that he saw her messing around with these Hispanic cats, right? So he thought, one day she came in, man, and she was tied too with a Catholic priest, So anyway, she came in, and before the class started and everything, the worker was in there. This little dude, I guess he popped his shit out on her, and thinking he was gonna get some action. And she pushed her panic button. The cops ran in there. I think they beat the guy up, because any time that an inmate fucks around with a female staff like that, has a aggressive sexually, staff usually fuck the dude up. So anyway, she went and told the Catholic priest, man, hey, that guy's Smiley, does he want to work in here? So I got the job on Arts and Corrections. I worked in there for like 5 years, and I dug it. It was great. And what we did in there was we did a lot of paintings. At first, I was the only guy allowed in there, and then we would have an art teacher come in for 10 days, 5 weekends, and guys would do the class. And then I got it set up where guys could come in, and after they finished the art class, they could come in during the week with me and then continue, their art skills, things they'd learned in the class. And also what we would do is I would give them enough shit to do like 4 paintings, take the shit to their house. I said, I want 2 paintings for the program. And they could keep 2 paintings for themselves and for the program. And then the paintings that they did for the shop and the paintings I did for the shop, we would save up and have an auction once a year. And the LA Times covered it a couple times, But all the money from the auction went to the Children's Center of Antelope Valley. And we raised $5,000. We're at $9,000. We raised a lot of money for them people, And what they did was they took care of abused children and their mothers. So it was a good program. And it teaches guys, for me, my thing was, look, man, guys in prison are usually pretty selfish, when they come in. They're self-centered, the world revolves around them, all that shit. So it teaches you to be selfless, When a guy spends several hours or days on a piece of artwork and he gives it to a program like that, it's pretty humbling, So I liked it. And it created a lot of communication amongst people. Like there was a black dude there from LA. He was a blood, Snoop, man, and he was into art and stuff. And I'd see him on the yard, and he'd be like, "Hey, teacher, what's up?" I was like, "Oh God," But we became good friends, man. And I had guys in that shop. I tell them, "Look, man, this is the only thing we have on this yard is this program. There's no other programs other than vocational shit and work, so don't fuck it up." And I was younger, bigger, a little bit more of an asshole still. Was in my early 30s, and or mid 30s. I tell guys, look, if you come in the shop, you're going to get along. You got to have a thick skin, If a guy says something about something you're doing, don't take it fucking personal, And you know what? We had Southsiders in there, blacks in there, whites in there, Hispanics, Asians, all doing artwork together. We have anywhere from 10 to 15 guys at a time in there, and everyone got along. Everyone was in there for the same reason, to learn about art. And it was pretty cool. I spent 5 years working that program, and towards the end, the state cut the budget for that program. And what was happening, my boss was out on the minimum yard, and I was on level 4 yard. So I ran the shop. She would pop in a couple times a week. And, she came in, like when I first started, I say, "What's our budget, for supplies?" And she said like $1,800. And I was like, all right. And after the first art sale, about a year had gone by. So what's our budget this year? And she told me, "You got $8,000, spend it all." So I developed a little trust with her. And I ran that shop. And so anyway, the state cut the budget there the last year I was there. And the lieutenant and the sergeant on my yard. And by then I also had hired another guy in there as a coworker. And we're standing out front of the shop, and he goes, you know that there's no budget for this program anymore. This lieutenant and the sergeant and we said, yeah, we heard. And he says, we're gonna keep that shop open, and you guys are gonna run it, and you're gonna run it fair. I said, we've been running it fucking fair, you know. And he says, that's why we're gonna leave it open. So the thing is, you know, they're cops. They got a job to do. They got a prison to run. Certain shit they sweat, you know, violence, drugs, shit like that, theft. They want to make sure they don't get their all their valuable food and everything stolen, clothes. You know, they watch all that shit. But also over familiarity with stab, making sure guys don't have stab, bringing them crap. So I mean, letting us have that art program. All the supplies were there because while I was there, I took that budget and I spent every penny on shit for that program. Prior to me going into that program, the guys that worked in there were using the supplies to buy dope with on the yard, you know, trading off art supplies for dope, and I wasn't with that shit. So by this time that they had cut the budget, we had tons of art supplies. We had gallons and gallons of paint, just all kinds of shit. So they left it open, you know, and the thing was, once you develop that level of respect, it's like a mutual respect kind of thing, and that to them it's probably like, you know, hey, we got a babysitter here, you know. My coworker and I were babysitting 10 or 15 guys. That means 10 or 15 guys are not getting in trouble because they're in there doing something positive. So, and you know, every year we'd have the art show. The prison got positive reviews, so that was cool. Then I went to Donovan. I went back to Donovan now. From there because my points went down to level 3, and I get back to Donovan. Now this is a place that I started painting, and they had a great hobby program there before I left, and I get back and guess what? There's no fucking program. They did away with a hobby program. For some reason, the goon squad and certain cops, they don't like hobby, and they had their way. They got it shut down. So I managed to finagle on my art supplies, and I just kept them under my bed, and I'd do a little painting here and there. But I fired up the tattooing there. I tattooed my homeboy Jimmy's legs, and I did one of his legs and one of his arms, and excuse me, came out pretty good. You know, from that point on, I just continued my tattooing and shit. And painting, and I'm gonna tell you something, man. If you're an artist, if you want to be an artist, people tell me, man, I wish I could paint. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. Learn how to tattoo, how to draw, how to paint. You know, I'm a self-taught person. My friend Danny Rivera, he got me to painting when I was in Donovan the first time. It's just like learning how to be a plumber or carpenter or anything else. You just have to practice and study, and you'll get it down, you know, to where you can do artwork. You can become an artist, you know. And I'm gonna tell you, it's a very gratifying experience. And I've said before, it opens doors for people. If you're an artist, people will gravitate to you that love artwork, and you get a lot of kudos for it, man. And you know, it's helped me a great deal. Now, you know, they kept me in prison almost my whole life. You know, I'm 58 years old now, and due to, you know, excessive weightlifting and, you know, hard prison life's hard on your body, man. So, you know, they took all my good work years from me. When I was in prison, I worked as a plumber, carpenter, woodworker, all that stuff. So now I'm out here in the world, you know, being able to do my artwork. It's low impact, and it gives you the freedom to be creative and do the things that you want to do. And it's opening doors out here also for me, not just in prison. It's a trip, you know. A lot of people from this YouTube and Instagram have messaged me about art. You know, I love it. This is what I love, and I'm just blessed to be able to do it. I'm going to end this video right now. Once again, we've got new shirts, Hard Intentions. This is the hammer drop, and we're going to post them. We're going to post these up tonight. The hammer drop. Look at that. That's a hand-pulled screen print shirt. It's not a computer-generated shirt. You know, it's nice. I painted that image by hand with acrylic paint, and my printer got all the screens ready. He's pulling them by hand. You can check my Instagram post out and see him pulling that squeegee by hand. So if you like the shirts or any of our other shirts, please log on to our website, which is www.hardintentions.com. Thank you for watching, folks, and enjoy your life. You only get one. Whatever it is you do, do it hard. Thank you.